Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for watching this video. Today I'm going to be talking about one of my more anticipated movies of 2019, Alita: Battle Angel. If you had watched my most anticipated movies review, this was in my honorable mentions, and so I'm going to try and make sure and do all the movies that were on that video, make sure to do reviews for them for 2019. So let's get started. Alita: Battle Angel. Now, Alita: Battle Angel is directed by Robert Rodriguez and produced by James Cameron. Now, going into this movie, you have to have certain expectations. This is a Robert Rodriguez movie. It's going to have very little story and a bunch of action. And that's what I went in expecting, and that's what I got. Alita is the story of a cyborg girl who is dropped onto Earth in 2500 and something, and has to kind of cope with who she used to be, but she doesn't remember who she used to be. And she becomes this battle warrior from a time long past. And it's kind of like an origin story for her character, and honestly this movie is an origin story. It sets up for future movies. There's two things that this movie does well, and that's really all they went for in this movie. Let me talk about the good first, and then I'll go to the bad. The good things that this movie does is special effects. Wow. You could give the Oscar to this movie for best visual effects right now, and nobody would complain, because wow. Unless something else shocks me this year, this is maybe the best CGI I've ever seen, or VFX. I don't really know the correct term anymore. They use it in such a way that makes the movie better instead of harming the movie. Much like Avatar did, where you couldn't have created the world without all the VFX. That's the same with this movie. And Alita herself is not human, and her face moves like a human, but it's all VFX, and it is beautiful. She does an amazing job as an actress portraying this character, and they do an amazing job faking her look to be real, and you honestly care about her as a character, and you really feel like you want to know more about her. I guess this will be three things that they did well, because that's the second thing. And then the third thing they did well is the action. This is based, I believe, off of an anime comic book. This is honestly probably the only way you can do anime in live action, is using VFX the way they do in this movie. I read a lot of fantasy books, and I've always thought in my head, how could you incorporate this fantasy book into a movie without it looking cheesy or dorky? Because, you know, people flying around like in anime, we haven't seen that work well in real life. We've saw like John Carter, no. And all these other movies where they float, it just looks cheesy and doesn't look good. This does it beautifully, and her action scenes are super high paced and very fast, and I think that this is the type of movie that anime needs to be adapted into. Problem with that is that it took like $300 million to make this movie. Unfortunately, I don't know if we're gonna get part 2 and part 3 and part 4 of this movie, because I don't think Alita's gonna make that kind of money. It's not like Avatar. Avatar was revolutionary in what it did, and that's why so many people watched it. Alita is revolutionary in parts, but we're already to the point where it's like, okay, we want something new, and we need more story than this. And this movie just is lacking a little bit in story. A couple of negatives here. Alita is a warrior that has an arc that does this. There is no, oh no, where's her like struggle? Where is she coming from? What are her flaws? And she doesn't have any. Her flaw would be that she doesn't remember anything, but her fighting skills are still there, so she doesn't lose fights. Some people think that's awesome, and in parts it was super awesome, but I would have liked earlier on in the story to have her fail in ways, and they kind of hinted at that in a few moments without spoiling things, but it just didn't quite hit me like, let's say, Luke losing his arm in Empire Strikes Back. Like, that is a huge character moment of that he has to rise him up above that. And this movie just doesn't have any of that. The side characters were good. Christoph Waltz, of course, is a great actor. He did really good in this. I thought he was excellent. A couple of the supporting characters could have been used better. I feel like Connelly was just misused. I think she could have just been any generic actress and it would have worked, unfortunately. And then I think Mahershala Ali could have also just kind of been anybody, and it would have been okay. Actually, it probably would have been better had he been a no-name guy. Those two characters, I think, could have been better. The boy, her kind of boyfriend, but not really. He's kind of just like cares about her. He was awesome. I thought he did a really good job. He fits the tone of the movie. It's not like an Oscar-worthy performance or anything, but he fit the tone of the movie. You bought into him being who he was, and it worked. The motorball scene. Wow. Motorball stuff is awesome in this movie. So I guess that's 4 things that this movie did well. But I guess that kind of goes into the action too. But the motorball stuff is awesome, and I wanted to see more of that. And a little less slow development of everything else. But overall, I think Alita Battle Angel was a fun movie. I think it's definitely worth seeing on the big screen. It's what it's made for. I didn't get to see it in IMAX or 3D. I've heard both those are good, but I won't speak to those. I can imagine IMAX would just be beautiful. It's worth watching just for the visuals of this movie. And it was just a really fun time at the movie theater. I've decided to do a new style of listing movies. If you watch Jeremy Johns' channel, he has his ratings, awesome-taculars at the top and all this stuff. And I just decided that I don't like doing numbers either, like, oh, it's a 4 out of 5 or whatever. So I'm gonna just kind of give it this list. So this is my list from worst to best. The worst is I will rate it a waste of money, and even worse, your time. That will be the worst rating. That would be like the newest Transformers, not Bumblebee, but the latest one with Mark Wahlberg that is completely not worth your time or money. Next would be worth streaming. This would be a movie like Bird Box that had it come out in theaters, nobody would have watched it, it wouldn't have been that good, but because it was streaming, it was worth your time streaming. But that's about it. Next will be theater worthy. That will be a movie such as Bohemian Rhapsody. If you saw my review, I don't think it's a bad movie, but I just don't think it's that great. But that would be one that would be worth watching in the theater because of the kind of movie it is. Next will be my Best Picture nomination. This would be a movie like The Big Short. I don't think The Big Short is going to be an all-time great movie. I think it's really good for what it is. It deserves a nomination, but it didn't deserve to win Best Picture. And then my next 2, these are kind of, I just had to put them in here like this. One is instant classic. That would be an example like The Dark Knight. That is where it's a classic right now. Everybody agrees it's a great movie, but we don't know for sure how well it's going to age in 20 or 30 years. And then a movie that I list as future classic is my highest rating, and that's because I believe this movie will go down in the history of film as a great film. Now that would be one like There Will Be Blood or No Country for Old Men. Those movies, the second I watched them, you could just tell this will be an all-time great movie. Those are my categories: future classic, instant classic, Best Picture nomination, theater worthy, streaming worthy, and then waste of money, and even worse, your time. So I'm going to give Alita Battle Angel the theater-worthy rating. I think it was super fun, definitely worth seeing in the theater. Now, of course, these ratings, I'm not going to give an action movie Best Picture nomination if it's like John Wick, okay? But for what kind of movie it is, I will rate it in there. And if I say it's an instant classic, well, that means I think it's an instant classic, regardless of what kind of movie it is, even if I think it shouldn't win Best Picture. So think what you want, but I think this will be fun, and again, I give it more exciting way to talk about it. So Alita Battle Angel, go watch it if you can in the theater. I don't know if it'll really be worth your time not on the theater screen, because that's what that movie's for, kind of like Avatar. But I enjoyed it, and I hope you did too. And as always, peace.